If there's one thing that connects addiction with Viktor Frankl and logotherapy and Viktor Frankl's experience in the concentration camp, as I see it, it is the essential need for spirituality. Spirituality through pain, through suffering, and there's a tremendous connection with pain and suffering for the addict. So in that lecture, I spoke about these 4 types of people. I spoke about the religious person who had no spirituality whatsoever. They were void of each other. Somebody who practiced ritualistic behavior, who walked the walk, but did not have a connection with spirituality. I spoke about a person who had no spirituality, had no religion, but was very, very spiritual. And I had a lot of folks in the audience that identified with that. Many people that come to a rehab have had some religious background, some very, very serious religious training from all different religions. And through a whole bunch of experiences were turned off to religion and yet had some spirituality. Some people in the audience had no spirituality and no religion. And then the 4th type of person that I saw in the world, and I mentioned to these folks that were in the rehab getting well, was the religious person who had spirituality. And as much as that was the focus for me, although I was not there to proselytize, I was there to teach people about recovery and to help people and to help the staff to provide the best recovery possible and treatment possible. If somebody was religious and could grow in their spirituality, or was spiritual and can grow in their religion, that was a very, very important part of the process. And it happens to people, not immediately, many people, but a lot of people that were religious, and I find this with Yidden, a lot of people that were religious and moved away and get well in the early days, and sometimes past the early days of their recovery, will return to a different type of Yiddishkeit, the type that includes things that they didn't have, and the whole practice and the whole gestalt of Yiddishkeit takes on a completely different meaning. And that's a bracha about addiction, because I fear to say a lot of those people would never have gotten to this level, this madregas of connectedness with Yiddishkeit. It's very, very much in accord with Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, logotherapy, and how pain can be a catalyst for tremendous growth, tremendous change. This is not new to Yiddishkeit. This is an essential part of Yiddishkeit. Midos, the Musar movement, is all about character refinement. And addiction is generally about losing character and violating values and being involved in behaviors that really are the antithesis of midos. And addiction ends in very, very tragic ways, as we know only too well, only too recently in this culture, in this community that we live in. So what I did and what I do when I talk about spirituality is I really try and focus and help people focus not on the nebulous, intellectual, kind of confusing term, the subjective term spirituality, because it means something different to everybody. It's so subjective. What I do is I ask people to look at what does it mean to be spiritual, to talk about an action. That's what midos are about. Midos are not an ideological phenomenon in my opinion. They are a concrete, tangible set of behaviors. And so with the patients, we would go through this exercise of identifying what it means to be spiritual, to behave spiritually. And I had a big whiteboard in the front of the room, and there were 70 people sitting, and I'd ask people to just throw out, we brainstormed, if you will, to throw out characteristics about spirituality. What does it mean? What's the behavior? And people would talk about honesty. People would talk about faithfulness. People would talk about loyalty. There were all sorts of characteristics of the spiritual person. And even though it wasn't a religious, quote-unquote, religious program, it was a secular program, because the program was very much integrated with 12-step recovery, and 12-step recovery is not a religious program, but I have to tell you, there's tremendous religious connotation and verbiage